staying the distance.
This is a very late posting of the Chester Stakes back on the 31st of August. The favourite for this race was Caius Chorister from Melbourne Cup hopeful Absurde.
They're off for the Virgin Bet Chester Stakes, 1 3/4 ahead of them. And after an absence of 10 months or so, last year's winner Shanro is just taking a while to warm up. The purple and yellow silks having to be kidded and coaxed along at the back of the field. And Samui, also towards the rear in the red and blue, was hustled along for half a dozen strides. On the sharp end, the nose-banded Enemy is doing it rather more easily and leads them across the far side of the Rudy by a couple of lengths to Real Dream in a blue and yellow jacket, wide of the mare Caius Chorister. Now, how she settled today? Well, she seems to have settled well enough in third for James Doyle. He's just been able to drop his hands on her and sits a couple of lengths off the pace, with Fairbanks in the white and green a further half length down in fourth. And then Absurde, the pink cap, amongst a trio of Irish train runners in the second half of the field. Samui wider out and Shanro last of all. They meander their way through the first half mile, and Enemy leads them at the top of the straight for the first time. Over Real Dream and Caius Chorister, who's got plenty of cover in the slipstream of the leader. Fairbanks is next, in turn being followed by Absurde, and then Samui, and Shanro remains last of the seven. So Enemy will lead them under a judge with a circuit to cover, around about a length clear, at a fairly modest 34-35 miles an hour, even fractions. Enemy to halfway. Over Real Dream wide of Caius Chorister. Absurde with a pink cap is up the inner of Fairbanks, and Shanro racing alongside Samui, who again needs a little encouragement. He's just having to be chivied and chased along in the first time cheek pieces. Samui, they race up the viaduct side of the track. They're heading to the end of a circuit, and now the last 3/4 of a mile of the Virgin Bet Chester Stakes is in sight. Enemy made every inch of the running so far. Real Dream one off the Spence, disputing second with Caius Chorister. And then Fairbanks racing wide of Absurde, and Shanro in the purple and yellow, last year's winner, up the inner of Samui. Across the far side of the course they go once again, inside the last 5 furlongs, 1,000 metres, and there's been very little change in the order throughout, and it's still Enemy who controls the gallop, and it's still a fairly even 34-35 miles an hour. So Enemy being allowed to set his own fractions here under Kieran Fallon. Real Dream, the spotted cap, sitting just second. Caius Chorister buried away on the inner, but is rather hemmed in at the moment. James Doyle will be looking for a bit of an out as they move to the final 3 furlongs. Widest of all, Samui begins to make progress from the rear, circling the field, blue and red jacket. Fairbanks is ridden along. Absurde, white jacket with a pink cap, travels nowhere to go. Now Doyle angles out Caius Chorister as Enemy quickens up inside the 2, but Caius Chorister has got clear running now, moving through. Samui on the left, and here's Absurde joining in on the right. He's managed to move through right against the rail here. Danny Tudhope aboard Absurde, moves through to challenge Caius Chorister. These two dominate the finish. Samui running on in third, but it's Absurde. It's an Ebor, it's a county hurdle, it's a Chester Stakes. Could it be the Melbourne Cup next? Absurde is too good for Caius Chorister, Samui, then Fairbanks, Shanro, Enemy, and Real Dream last.
Absurde shows some brilliance to accelerate away from Caius Chorister. 2 starts later, Caius Chorister went on to finish 4 lengths fourth to Europe's best 2-miler, Kyprios.
Running now, moving through. Samui on the left, and here's Absurde joining in on the right. He's managed to move through right against the rail here. Danny Tudhope aboard Absurde.
Before I go, please take advantage of some of the playlists I've put together. You can see all 5 of Valband's runs this year, all 4 of Warp Speed's runs, and the last 4 runs of One Smooth Operator. I've also got a purpose-made Melbourne Cup playlist in chronological order, starting at the Adelaide Cup in March. Check the odds, pick a winner.
Will commence again if you try to take our firearms.